Welcome back to another episode of the Rahway JAG 1-1 podcast series. I'm your host, Nicholas Iwarmi, and in each episode, we sit down with inspiring guests to share their experiences and journeys to success. Today, we have with us Rahway High School alumni Jaida West. Jaida, can you tell us about your career journey?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I graduated from Morgan State in 21, and from there I was with the Boeing company for about 3 years, doing a whole bunch of different jobs between financial analyst, financial operations, living in Philly, LA, and then eventually landed in Dallas, and just recently started a new position at American Airlines. So that's been fun. Yes, thank you.
What were some challenges you faced along the way, and how did you overcome them?
Uh, I think one of the biggest challenges is taking risk. I usually like to stay in my bubble, do what I do, and do it well. But I realized soon that I needed to step outside my comfort zone if I was going to get anywhere. And so that's part of the reason why I chose to work with Boeing for the first couple years of my career, because they had a rotation program where I can just try new things. And if I didn't like it, I can just rotate to a different job and continue to do that for about 2 years. So I think once I got that under my belt, I was like, oh, I want to try something new all the time. And so I moved to Dallas, did a new job, and now currently I just started a new job and trying something new as well. So I think just taking risk is probably one of the biggest things that I've learned just early on in my career. If you don't have any responsibilities, if you don't have anything else to do, you might as well just go ahead and try something new. And if you don't like it, then you can at least say that, hey, I didn't like it, and you can move on from that. So that's probably one of my biggest career tidbits, I would say.
You said you have a new job. Can you expand more on what you do?
Yes, so I work in corporate finance at American Airlines, and all that pretty much entails is that I am looking at budgets, forecast, working with functional leaders. So think of it as you have an engineer, someone in IT, someone that's a pilot. All of those people have finances that are associated with them, whether they're traveling or whether they need a new software for this particular IT project. So I work specifically within IT, but also, like I said, managing their projects, seeing if it's strategic for the company, if it makes sense to do for the company, or if it's just like a nice to have, like a wish list. So I kind of manage that, and it's been great so far. Like I said, I've only been doing it for about a month now with them, but it's been fun to just kind of learn how American Airlines does things and how I can potentially put my little stamp of Jaida West on it to make sure that I'm leaving a legacy when I leave. But yeah, that's kind of what I do now.
How can students start preparing for a career in what you do, like financial analyst and stuff?
Become best friends with Excel, I would say, is probably the biggest thing. I don't know if in high school there was a particular Excel class, but I know in college we did a lot of Excel modeling, things like that. Like knowing the shortcuts in Excel is great, but then also learning formulas, things like that, I think is important. But then also just having a desire to want to learn more and want to know what the numbers mean. Some people just like to do the numbers and crunch numbers, and that's fine if that's what they like. For me, I like to understand what does the numbers mean and how do I make an impact? Is it strategic? Does it make sense to do it? Does it not make sense to do it in 5 years, but should we do it now? So I think if you're looking for a career in finance, definitely make sure that you are friends with Excel. I will say within finance, there's two different types, right? You have corporate finance, which is what I just referred to as budgets, forecasting. You also have personal finance, where you're dealing with people's retirement and investing. So making that distinction first, I think, is important. But then if you do decide corporate finance is the way to go, then Excel modeling is probably the next best thing to start to get comfortable with.
Is there any required education or training to pursue that career path?
Um, it depends on your job. I think most companies are looking for someone with at least a degree in business. It doesn't have to necessarily be finance, but I know at least a business degree is helpful. And then if you have a background in finance, that's even better. I think that's the only true requirement. For business, I would say in general, it's all about who you know and then like what you want to do with it. There's a whole bunch of things you can do in finance, in business in general, whether it's marketing or business operations. There's a lot of different roles and jobs you can do. But specifically within finance, I don't think there's a particular job or education requirement aside from getting like a degree. like a bachelor's or something like that.
I agree. I feel like the more people you know, like the easier it would be to climb up, like a stepping stool to success. Following
Absolutely.
my next question, how important is networking in any industry, and how are some ways that students can build connections?
Absolutely. I think we talked about this a little bit in the class that we did earlier, but networking is super important because you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't talk to another person in the room, who else is going to know that you're the smartest person in the room, right? So, networking is important because it's not just, hey, I need you to do this for me. It's also just getting to know people. So I always tell everyone that if they're nervous about networking or don't know what it looks like, it's at its most basic form, it's you getting to know someone else and them getting to know you. And then eventually you develop a relationship where, hey, maybe you can help me move, right? Or maybe you can help me get this job. And it just starts to build from there. So networking is important. Building relationships with other people are important. Like, unless you're going to work for yourself by yourself and never talk to another human being ever in your life, which is highly unlikely, you're going to need to talk to people. You're going to need to work with people. And so networking is kind of your first stepping stone for that. Now, if you don't know how to network, LinkedIn is like the most professional type of networking where you download the app, you add friends like you would on Instagram and all the other social media platforms, and then you get to share what you do, and other people get to see what you do. And maybe that's someone connecting with you and saying, hey, I want to learn more about what finance is like at American Airlines, or I want to know more about how you give back and what you do in your volunteering and all that type of stuff. So LinkedIn is a great platform if you're like too nervous to kind of go into a room where you don't know anyone, but you can at least connect with like your colleagues, connect with your classmates, and then you can start to build your network from there.
Can you like give us like an example of like things to say when networking? Because I feel like some people, like they don't like they don't voice their voice enough, if that makes sense. Like they're shy, like they have a shell around them. I said they don't know what to say when they come across certain people. So do you have like advice to people that are like shy, like to break out that like shy?
Absolutely. Most times, if you're nervous about networking, do it in a group. So I always, if I'm going to a new event and I don't know anyone, I would at least bring my friend Naya with me. Like, hey Naya, let's go to this event together, and at least you know one other person. So now at this point, you feel like you have someone that's got your back. And so when you're going into these events and you're talking with people, you can have the friend that's very social. Go ahead and lead the conversation. And then you find out, oh, so and so likes the Eagles. I love the Eagles. And you can start to have a conversation on that. Or you find out someone else loves like musicals and oh, I love musicals. I literally just watched X, Y, and Z, and you guys can start to connect on that. So, finding similarities is the biggest or easiest way, I think, to build your network and starting that conversation initially. And then, of course, it can develop to something a little bit more formal and hey, I want to get this job. Do you know anyone? But I think initially, just finding things that you guys have in common, whether it's sports, art, whether it's just family, religion, finding something that you guys have a common ground on and then building from that. So that's probably the easiest way to start your network. Hey, do you like the color blue? Something simple. Oh, hey, do you like sports? Or hey, do you want to watch this movie on Saturday? I heard it's really good. And then you just build from there.
What has been your proudest career achievement so far?
Hmm. I actually received a 2024 Modern Day Technology Leader Award, which is a whole lot of words for pretty much thank you for helping build the next group of leaders. And I do that by doing what I'm doing today, talking with high school students, talking with college students about what to expect when you go into a professional career and what are some things you should remember. And that is really important for me. I love what I do, but I also love to give back. And the only way that I get more people that look like me in a field that I'm in is by sharing what I've gone through, sharing my experience so that someone else can say, okay, she's did it, so I can do it too. So I think that award was, I guess, just confirmation that, okay, I am doing something that is making a difference and people are seeing that, and it's actually something that is like tangible. You can physically see more students coming into a field in finance. You can physically see more students going into a career that's more technical that you don't see a lot of African American women in. Or just African Americans in general. So that award was great, and I got it in February of this year. So that's one I have under my belt. Hopefully, I'll get some more. But for me, it's really just making sure that I'm helping those that are under me. And I know I've said it before, but lift as you climb is probably one of the main things I like to live by. If I'm in a position, let's just say a level 3, I'm going to talk to a level 1 and a level 2 to see how we can get them to a level 3. And I feel like that just if that continues, then you'll just get more people that look like you in a room that there aren't many. So yeah.
First of all, congrats on your achievement.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
my next question is: do you think like leaders are important? Are important? Wait, whoa. Do you think leaders are important, and how does one become a leader?
Yes, leaders are important. You need someone to kind of help drive any type of program, initiative. To have a voice is important. So yes, leaders are necessary. How do you become a leader? I think you put yourself in leadership positions where you have to figure out how to lead a team. We have to figure out how to find some type of vision that everyone can agree on, and being strategic on how you get there and working with others. So for those that want to become a leader, the first thing you need to do is you have to be comfortable with speaking up. You have to be comfortable with being the face. You have to be comfortable also with potentially going against the grain, right? If you know most leaders, they did something different that got them recognized, right? And then there were people that felt the same way but just weren't comfortable enough saying it. So if you want to become a leader, you have to be comfortable with saying it and getting that confidence behind you, and then the rest will follow. Working with people, you have to do that every day. So you'll get repetition in that, and you'll get better at that. But I think the first thing you need to do is just get comfortable with being confident, get comfortable with being vocal, get comfortable with being the face of whatever initiative program that you're going to be leading.
Do you have advice for kids that want to be a leader but don't know how to be a leader? Or like,
Yeah, I say, hey, go be the president of a club that you have so much passion for. Like if you're a robotics geek, go be the president of robotics. Or if you love basketball, go be the captain on the basketball team, right? Now, most times those roles are not something that you can just apply to, but someone has to select you for it. And so in order to be selected, you have to demonstrate some of those traits, right? Like you are vocal, you're confident, you are able to rally a team. Those are things that you can do now so that when it is your opportunity to potentially put your name in the hat to be leader, to be captain, to be whatever, the president, you already have a brand that demonstrates, okay, they know how to get people together, they know how to rally up a team, they know how to get things done. That's who I want to be in my corner. That's who I want to lead the team. And so I think that is probably the easiest way to kind of get examples or at least try to become a leader. I think high school is probably the best time because you're with your peers. You have those around you that are somewhat like-minded, but if you can get your peers on board, it's so much easier to lead because at that point you have their trust, right? You have them vying for you. So yeah, go be a part of a club or organization where you can go and demonstrate that.
being an alumni of Rahway High School, how did Rahway, like the education process, help you become successful?
Well, one, they have a phenomenal business program where you get to just understand all types of business: sports management, marketing, intro to business, accounting. So you get the foundations of what it takes to actually be in a career within business. So I think that prepared me astronomically. But I would also say there are some teachers here that they really pour into you because they know that there's potential in you. And you don't always get that in some of the schools that you go to. So I will say there's two teachers that come to mind. Maybe I will, maybe I won't voice their names. But there's two teachers that come in mind that really wanted to see the best for me. And I would never forget, and this is probably going to give the person away, but that's okay. I was at a track meet, and I just was not doing well. And I think part of it was me just getting in my own way. I think I was afraid to shine, which is crazy to say now. But I was just so frustrated, like I wasn't doing well. And then this particular person said, well, I kept saying, like, why am I not doing this? Like, I don't understand why this has to be me. And Blaine was like, oh, well, I guess I said it. Why not you? And when he put it that way, I was like, well, dang, I guess you got a point. Like, why not me go ahead and break barriers? Why not me to break records? Why not me to set an example of what could potentially come down the road for this particular program? And that's such a minute example, but I feel like it just spoke volumes of the type of teachers and the type of people that like to pour into you here at Rahway. So I'm an advocate for Rahway High School. I always will be. Like I said, there are people here that really want to see you succeed. So that's kind of, I think, what has made the difference.
Touching back on the track stuff,
Yeah.
what was your track chapter like in Rahway High School?
It was a roller coaster, I would say. I love track. Sometimes track didn't love me though, and that was something I just couldn't get with. But I would say I did pretty well. I think I broke a record maybe or close to something like that for track, and I specifically did shot put and discus, and then I did well enough to get myself a D1 scholarship, which I thought was important because now I don't have to pay for school in college. And then post Rahway High School, college, I think definitely opened some doors on, there's other events I could explore, there's other things I can do. But it all started at Rahway High School, my freshman year throwing, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty decent for a freshman. And then I was pretty decent for a sophomore, and that's okay. Maybe I'll take this thing seriously and actually do it for spring and winter for my junior and senior year. So I would say track was probably the highlight of my high school career just because I felt family was there. I mean, you're spending hours with them, and then on the weekends, you're pretty much spending your whole day with them. So you create camaraderie, you create a family, you create people that are rooting for you. There's people that were runners, didn't know anything about shot put, but was coming over to the shot put circle to cheer us on. So it was a fun experience, and it was a feeling that I yearned for when I went to college and I received, and it's an environment and a feeling that I ask for now when I'm working with my team just in the corporate world. Like, hey, let's do things outside of our jobs that get us to actually understand who we are as a people versus just what you do in your 9 to 5. And that's what you do when you're on sports teams, right? You see each other succeed, you see each other fail, you see each other cry, you see each other laugh, and that type of like authentic emotions are something that I like. I thrive on because I'm like, okay, you're showing me your true self, and I feel comfortable now to share my true self. So that was a long answer to how was Rahway High School track, and I loved it.
As we know, track is a win and lose sport and like a hate and love sport. How did you turn those losses into lessons?
Honestly, these are some great questions. I would say every time I did not do well in track, it was something I can specifically point to. It was like, you're overthinking, or you're scared, or you're pretty much, my thing was I was the overthinker. Like, I'm like, oh, well, if I do this, if I turn this foot, then it's going to do that, and if I don't get low. It's a very technical sport, and that's why it's such a hate-love, because if you get one thing wrong in your technique, your whole day is off. And so when I didn't do well, I went back to the drawing board and I talked to my coach and like, hey, let's start recording what I'm doing, because it's such a visual and technical sport. I need to physically see what I'm doing, because you telling me is one thing, but I can't comprehend it. And so once I started actually like going all in and not being like, oh, I don't want to lift heavy, or I don't want to throw too far. Like, I don't want to do, like, I want to be good, but I don't want to be like too good. Once I got out of my own way, I think that's where I really started to see some progress, because I can see myself develop. I went to training camps and I put in the work. And so for me, if I fail, I quickly learn, okay, how do I succeed? Like, I don't want to fail anymore at that, right? Now, you're going to fail again, like it's inevitable, but I want to be able to master this thing. I want to go on to the next thing. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson within track and field, because it's so technical. There's always going to be something to work on. You're never going to be perfect, but that's kind of life, right? Like, you're never going to be perfect. You're always going to have to do something to work towards or to get better at, and that's like a key lesson that track has taught me. And so I've carried that over into my professional career. Okay, hey, I'll be an Excel expert, but now I need to know how to, do this particular process or whatever the case may be. So it's a continuous learning, I would say. And you have to be a continuous learner even when you graduate high school, when you graduate college. You still have to want to learn more. Otherwise, you're just going to stay stagnant. So that's my track to corporate relationship.
Do you have any advice for for the people on the track team right now that I feel like they're not good enough, or are in the mental barrier, like they feel like they're doing their best, but their best is not enough?
Yeah. I will say take a break. When when it was COVID and I couldn't throw in college, that break was honestly everything for me because I needed a reset. I put too much pressure on myself to be great that I was getting in my own way. And during COVID, I couldn't do nothing. I mean, I can go to the throwing circle, but I mean, it wasn't bringing me happiness. I just felt like I was overthinking all over again. So I took a couple months of like a break, and then I ended up breaking my toe. So God told me, yeah, you physically are going to sit down. You're not going to do anything, and you're going to just do something that allows you to reset. And so for all the track athletes that are, they're just in a funk right now, take a beat, reset. You might not be able to do that in the season, but definitely take a minute to kind of step back and really reevaluate, okay, what do I want to do? Like, what is my goal here? Is my goal to be the fastest or run the furthest, the fastest, or throw the furthest, or jump the highest? Is that my goal? And if so, okay, what are the steps I need to take? Like, I'm a firm believer. Let's write things down. Okay, in order to get to 39 feet, I got to hit 35 feet, right? So how do I get to 35? And then you move from there. So you have to, at least in my opinion, you have to write things down. Okay, if I'm going to get to 35 feet, what are some of the technical things that I need to fix right now? What are the quick wins? Things that I could definitely see, I take 2 steps and I see a huge difference versus things that's going to be a little bit harder to create, but it's also going to create a difference. So those quick wins are important, and then start working on the things that's going to take a little bit longer to actually fix. But then also remember your why. Remember why you fell in love with the sport. Remember why you're doing the sport, and try to lean into that, right? Like if you got one more throw left, you're like, you know what, I'm going to put my all into this throw, as if it's the last throw I ever am going to do in my career, whether it's high school or college. Like, just continue to push yourself, remember your why, take a reset break, and then be strategic on what you want to do next. And hopefully that'll help.
What was your HBCU experience like?
I love my HBCU. Ooh, I would go back today if I could. But I went to Morgan State, for those that don't know. I went to Morgan State, graduated in 21. And it was a utopia. If you ever felt like, and it's crazy, when you are removed from the situation, you're like, oh my God, I miss it. But when you're in it, you're like, oh my God, I hate it. Like, I can't believe I got to go to class at 8 a.m. But then it's like, well, you're done at 10 a.m. And now you got the whole day to yourself. So my college experience it was a blast. I met some amazing people. I networked. I had fun. I will say this one example, or this story, is probably the highlight of my college career. I had an exam that I needed to prep for, a math exam, and it was a Thursday night. And on Thursday nights, they have these like discounts at the clubs. So I said, okay, well, I have 6 a.m. practice in the morning, but I got to get this exam prep. Like, I got to prep for the exam, so I need to figure out how I'm gonna do that. I went to the study hall, I guess they had, and I was there from like 6 to 8, prep for the class or prep for the exam. Then I went to the party from like 9 to like 11, and then I got back, and then I was ready for 6 a.m. practice. And for me, that's like the highlight of college for me, because I literally did all 3. I was a student athlete, and I had fun on my extracurriculars all within 24 hours. And for me, that just kind of speaks of what college is. It's an experience that I feel like you should at least try to experience if you have the opportunity to, because it teaches you not only adulting, which is a whole different lesson, but it teaches you how to be your own person. It teaches you, or at least shows you who you are. You help develop who you are going to be in your future. Hey, I might not have been on time at all in high school, but in college, if I'm going to pay for these classes, I'm going to be on time. And I think that's the most important part of college, just finding yourself, meeting people that are like-minded, and then just having fun, because you only have 4 to 5 years at it, so you might as well have fun while you're doing it.
My last question for you is, what are some advices to businesswomen like yourself, like people that want to be a businesswoman? Like, what advice do you have for them?
I would say don't be afraid of being the only, especially if you're an African-American woman, where you're likely going to be the only person that looks like you on your team. Don't be afraid of those situations. Lean into those situations. If you know that, you might get someone commenting that, you're the youngest person on the team or whatever, prep for those situations. Have little snappy but respectful comeback so that you feel confident in you being there because you deserve to be there. Every room that you're in, you deserve to be in. And bask in it. Don't shy away from it. Don't let someone deter you from continuing to explore it. And just lean into it. I think that's the biggest part. Don't feel like because you're the only, you're continually going to be the only. If you lift as you climb, there's going to be someone that comes after you, and then there's going to be more that follow. And so you being that trailblazer, you being that barrier breaker is going to be important for those that come under you. So I always say, don't shy away, lean into it, and know that there's going to be more that follow soon to come. So those are my advices.
Okay, thank you for your appearance on the podcast once again. That concludes the second episode of the Rahway JAG 101 podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.